Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to shake things up in the way you learn?
I am.
This deep dive is all about why you and how to ditch that passive listening and actually put knowledge to work.
Love it.
We're diving into Krishna Kumar's Action Learning Playbook. It's a treasure trove of over 30 tools to make learning, well, way more active and engaging.
I'm intrigued already. 30 tools.
Yeah, he doesn't mess around. But before we get lost in the toolbox, let's talk about why this whole action learning thing even matters. I mean, think about it. We are bombarded with information constantly, right? Podcasts like this one, articles, books. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
Totally. It's overwhelming. And honestly, how much are we actually absorbing and using? That's the real question.
Right. Kumar's book really hit home for me on that point. Like, imagine going to an all-you-can-eat buffet, but leaving hungry because you just picked at the same old dishes. That's what a lot of learning feels like.
Oof. Yeah. Guilty as charged.
Kumar's big argument is that we learn best by doing. Traditional learning, just sitting here soaking it in, it often just doesn't stick.
It makes sense, right? Think about learning to ride a bike. You don't just read the manual and magically start pedaling. You fall, you wobble, you figure it out as you go.
Exactly. Or cooking. My thing lately, I can watch hours of cooking shows, but until I actually try that recipe, get my hands dirty, maybe even set off the smoke alarm, that's when it becomes real learning.
Right. And Kumar says this doesn't just apply to those hands-on skills. He argues it's the same for even the most complex ideas. Leadership, strategic thinking, even understanding something like, well, action learning itself.
So meta.
Totally. He even has this great line in the book. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn.
Okay, that's a mic drop moment right there.
Yeah.
So we're convinced action learning it is, but what does that actually look like? Well, that's where this toolbox Kumar's put together comes in. This toolbox, though, I'm picturing like a literal toolbox, hammers, screwdrivers. Is action learning about building stuff?
Not quite. Well, maybe sometimes. It's more about the mindset, approaching learning in a way that gets you using the knowledge right away, whatever you're trying to learn.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's in this metaphorical toolbox then?
Kumar lays out over 30 different tools, so we obviously can't cover them all today.
30? Wow, that's a lot of tools.
Right. But he does group them in a way that makes sense. He starts with reflection and analysis.
Reflection. Doesn't sound very actiony at first glance.
I know, right? But these tools are about actively engaging with the information, not just passively receiving it.
Okay, so it's like thinking about what you're learning, but in a more active way.
Exactly. It's about really digging into the material, asking yourself questions, making connections. One tool he talks about that I really like is called muddiest points.
Money's point.
Yeah. So say you finish reading an article or listening to a podcast, you take a minute and ask yourself, what's still unclear to me? What are the muddiest points?
Interesting. So you're kind of turning confusion into a to-do list.
Exactly. You're identifying the gaps in your understanding so you can go back and fill them in.
I like that. Makes total sense.
Okay.
What else is in this toolbox?
Well, he also has a bunch of tools for idea generation and problem solving. This is where you start putting knowledge into action, experimenting, trying things out.
Ah, so this is where we get to actually do something.
Exactly. One technique that I found really interesting is called the ERIC method.
Eric. Like a person's name.
No. It stands for eliminate, reduce, increase, and create.
Okay. How does that work exactly?
So, say you're trying to learn how to be a better communicator, right? You might ask yourself, what are some things I can eliminate, like interrupting people?
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right. Then you might think about things to reduce, like using filler words like and like, and things to increase, like active listening.
And create.
Right. What new habits can you create to improve your communication, like maybe taking a few seconds to think before you speak?
Oh, that's a good one. I need to work on that. So it's a really practical way to take a concept like communication and turn it into concrete actions.
Exactly. And that's what I love about all these tools. They're not just theoretical, they're designed to be used in the real world.
Love it. Okay, so we've reflected, we've analyzed, we've brainstormed ideas. What's the next step in this action learning journey?
Well, this is where things get even more interesting. This category of tools is all about collaboration and application.
Collaboration. So action learning isn't just a solo mission.
Definitely not. Kumar argues that we learn best when we're interacting with others, sharing ideas, getting feedback.
Makes sense. Bouncing ideas off each other.
Exactly. And his favorite tool in this category, the one he keeps coming back to, is called action learning sprints.
Action learning sprints. That sounds intense.
It can be, but also incredibly rewarding. Basically, it's like a time-boxed project, could be a few hours a day, whatever, where a team comes together to tackle a real-world challenge using action learning principles.
Okay, so it's not just a theoretical exercise. You're actually working on something with real stakes.
Right. And because it's time-boxed, there's a sense of urgency. People are more likely to fully engage and actually implement what they're learning.
I can see how that would be really effective.
It can be transformative for teams. I've seen it firsthand.
Wow. Okay, so we're not just talking about individual learning here. This is about taking action learning to the team level, even the organizational level.
Absolutely. It's about creating a culture of continuous learning and improvement.
So instead of just sitting around a table brainstorming, you're actually diving in, using these tools, getting things done.
Exactly. And because it's time boxed, there's that urgency, people are more engaged, more likely to actually use what they learn. I've seen these action learning sprints. They can really shake things up in a team, lead to some amazing breakthroughs.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like taking all these learning tools we've been talking about and giving them like real-world teeth.
Exactly. And here's the thing. This isn't just for big companies.
Yeah.
These action learning sprints, the ideas behind them, they can work for any group, really. Anyone facing a challenge together.
Hearing you talk about all this, it really drives home the point that action learning, it's not just about like accumulating knowledge. It's about making a real impact.
Right. It's about taking what you learn and using it to actually make things better in your own life, your work, whatever.
I love that. Okay, so to everyone listening out there, you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but I'm not a CEO. I'm not leading a team. How can I actually use these tools?
Such a good question. And Kumar actually addresses this directly. He says action learning, it's not just for executives, it's for anyone who wants to be a better learner. Seriously, anyone. Student, freelancer, stay-at-home parent, artist, you name it.
Okay, so how do we get started? Like, what's one thing, big or small, that you've been wanting to learn or improve on? Think about it for a second.
Right. It could be anything. Learning new language, finally mastering that software you've been meaning to, or how to write a song. Whatever it is, there's an action learning tool that can help.
Instead of just dreaming about it, use that muddiest points technique to figure out that first step you need to take.
Right. Or grab a friend, try a mini action learning sprint to tackle something together.
So many possibilities. This has been such an inspiring conversation. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools to use now.
Me too. It's amazing how just a little shift in how we think about learning can make such a difference.
As we wrap up this deep dive on action learning, we want to leave you with one last thought to chew on. Kumar focuses a lot on the how of action learning, all these great tools. But what about the what? Do you think there are certain things that are just better suited to this approach than others?
Ooh, good question. That's something learning experts are still figuring out. Are there some skills, some subjects that just naturally lend themselves to action-based learning? Or can you learn anything this way? Lots to think about.
Definitely. So much food for thought. Go out there, experiment, learn by doing.
Yeah.
We'll catch you on our next deep dive.